My father was the House of Representative here for the state of Alabama for an extended period of time. He served out of District 83. He passed 3 years ago and was a big part of my life in terms of education. Went back to school when he was 42 years old and graduated Morehouse magna cum laude in 3.5 years.
Wow.
He graduated in 85. I went to school in 86. That wasn't an option. So I'll tell you a couple things that I was thinking about as I was framing my thoughts. Number one, the careers that your students will encumber by the time they're in the workforce have not been created yet. So stop steering them to places that you see today.
Amen.
Stop that. Stop limiting them to the scope of what you can see. Because God has a different agenda for those young people that you're educating. Teach them how to learn at any level with anything, with every aspect of perfection and detail that's possible. When I grew up, we were reading out of childcraft encyclopedias. I know some of y'all around that age, y'all ain't gonna say I ain't had nobody say a word when I said that. But my daughters and sons can Google anything that I took a month to figure out in 10 minutes or less. So what kind of intellectual fortitude do you think these young people will have at their disposal by the time they're at workforce age? So a lot of the limitations that they experience are in the classroom. Y'all don't get it.
It's the truth.
Now, you put your version of what they should be into them rather than exposing them to their own version of what they can be. Kids who can explore, see things different, expand their vision, their ability to be able to see beyond even what you can see is what makes leaders. Right? And they're sometimes misunderstood. And I feel like that's why we're losing kids in the street. Because in my opinion, a lot of times the most intelligent kid is the one who can adapt in situations that they are prescribed to, not the ones that can adapt to situations that you give them. Those kids who are surviving on the street sometimes make it, sometimes don't. They're financially smart because they got to know how to count to do what they do. They're street smart because they got to know how to maneuver and manipulate and know how to move around. They grow up a lot faster than most kids do because they got to take care of bills and kids and other stuff that we may not think is important. And then when they do get to us, educators, coaches, people who can provide for them, people who lead, then we have our filter of things that we bring to the table, what I call extra baggage. And then we bring that and impose that on somebody who's looking for an opportunity to be something different. Nobody comes and says, I want to be a bad person. Nobody has that filter. Some people resort to that because they don't have any other option. And they're exposed to other situations and circumstances that they can't control. So my point to you is that the jobs that they will inherit haven't been created yet. I'm going to give you an example. It wasn't until 2008 that people started talking about climate change, sustainability, circular economy. It wasn't in no books, they didn't have no majors, no minors, that was not in school. Okay, I was hired as a sustainability officer in 1994 at the University of Texas. Had no background. I learned at the School of Public Health where I got my master's degree. That's how I learned on the job. Took that career, catapulted that, became chairman of the United States Green Building Council. Took that, continued to educate, served on the President's Council for Sustainable Development under Clinton and Obama. Took that, took 3 companies and developed sustainability programs for them, and they became the most sustainable companies in the world, and now I've been recruited to come and lead circular economy at Amazon. Unheard of, unprecedented, right? It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with my father's ability to share with me what God had for me, which is always greater than what I had for myself. And being able to expose myself to the limitlessness of a mindset that you can be great at whatever it is that you choose to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that sometimes we narrowly push people in places where we might have wanted to go and wasn't able to do. or that we thought you should be a scientist, you should be this, or you should be that. And even kids come with filters, like, because all they see, athletes, actors, musicians, so they come with that filter. Nobody gets behind the camera, nobody starts to produce, nobody begins to promote, nobody wants to be an agent, nobody wants, like there are other careers, nobody wants to be an owner, nobody wants to do, like there are so many other careers that are filtered around that absolutely have a different level of sustainability financially, mentally, and emotionally. So stop putting barriers over these kids and allow them to grow into whatever it is that they're supposed to be. Because even you don't know. Your job is to equip them with the tools to be great. The lady said this is where amazing happens. Being amazing is not being limited to your scope of what their capabilities are. Being amazing is exposing them to things that they may not even think about. That's being amazing. They may see something you don't see. And your job is to give them that. I'll stop there and I'll move to my next point because I can stay there a little longer. But I think the second thing that we have to be aware of is that the kids are actually reaching out from day one. Her crying in her classroom that day was an expression of, I need something. When somebody doesn't say anything, that's when you need to be concerned. You don't know what the hell they think. But when somebody expresses themselves in a way, whether it's acting out, whether it's misconduct, whether it's stealing, whether it's starting a fight, whether it's bringing a gun to school, whatever that is, it is an expression, it is a cry for help or response. They want something, which is why they're doing that. The problem is that we fall into this mindset of society's, they're bad, they're good. And so we don't look beyond, you know, we real good at hiding our faults. Right? When we don't remember stuff that we did in school or in college, or mistakes that we might have made, or narrow escapes with the law, or that one joint that you smoked, or that weed that you was trafficking that you didn't get caught with, or when you was hustling a little bit in school, you never talked about it, or that moonshine or red dagger, whatever it was that you had and the police didn't find it. Like, or some of y'all, maybe I'm talking about myself. So I just say, some of y'all who got the white collar crimes, when y'all was doing little tax evasion, or you might have been manipulating the numbers to make things look a little better on this side, or maybe you was running over here and maybe you issued a contract to somebody and the kickback came back in a brown paper bag, or like those types of things. Like, so just because my father used to tell me it's a difference between sinners is the caught and the uncaught. That's it.
That's it.
You don't get to pick and choose how somebody else's flaws are different than yours. You just ain't got caught. And a lot of times we take for granted that the only reason you ain't got caught, God's grace. It ain't got nothing to do with you. You might have said something inappropriately and it wasn't heard, or you might have done something inappropriate and it wasn't seen, but don't think that you got away, because you didn't get away. So don't feel in a place where you can look down on somebody else, because if not for the grace of God, there you lie also. So you gotta be thinking about that hard work that she talked about. Like, how do I go above and beyond myself to be able to deliver the kind of love and education that a kid needs to come in? A lot of us in such a hurry to get out of there, you don't want nobody to come to you out of school. You trying to out there, 3:30. Right? And but if you get to the dry cleaners at 5 minutes before 6 and they gone, you hot. I need that dress. Girl, we supposed to be at Breeze tonight. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so my thing to you is that you have to pour a little bit in order to get the results that you want. And you won't see them right away. You will not see them right away. The legacy that you're creating is something that's going to be way down the road. Right? You may not even see it. So I'm going to close, and And one of the things I learned a long time ago is that, you know, I'm so glad that I'm not perfect. I'm so glad I'm not perfect. Because if you ever, I'm talking to my vacation Bible school folks right now, if you ever went to vacation Bible school and you recognize something over a period of time, you ever notice God didn't never use nobody who was perfect for his work? Everybody that he used had a problem. All right, I'm going to call a little light roll and then I'm going to tell a story. Okay, Moses stuttered. David's armor didn't fit. Paul rejected John Mark. Hosea's wife was a prostitute. Amos trimmed a fig tree. Jacob was a liar. David had an affair. Solomon was too rich. Abraham was too old. David was too young. Some of y'all ain't read your Bible. Timothy had ulcers. Peter was afraid of death. Lazarus was dead. John was self-righteous. Naomi was a widow. Paul was a murderer. So was Moses. Jonah ran from God. Miriam was a gossiper. Gideon and Thomas both doubted. Jeremiah was depressed and suicidal. Elijah was burned out. John the Baptist was a loudmouth. Mary was a worrywart. Mary was lazy. Samson had long hair till Delilah cut it. Noah was a drunkard. And Moses had a short fuse. God never used anybody who was perfect. You know why? He wanted to reveal to the common person that he could use you too. So allow yourself to be a vessel for somebody else to pull up on. Right? God has kept you here for a reason, and you need to leverage that. So I'm going to tell you a story about this kid I met a while ago, and he was one of those traditional students, and came from a pretty decent family, and just was super smart. Right? This kid was super smart, like, had a bad attitude, though. Could fight like hell. Always stayed in trouble. Always got kicked out of class. So back when we were in school, you know, when you did that, they put you in the other class, you know, over there behind home ec. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Right? They would move you over there, right? So this kid sat in that class year after year after year for like 3 years and read National Geographic magazine. Y'all know about those, right? Science magazine. That's what they put in that room. Right? The kids, and most kids were cutting out pictures and stuff like that. This kid was reading through those books. Kept on going. And 2 years later, they had him in this class, and this kid took a test, right? And he was in the 7th grade and tested on a college level on this test. And then they wanted to give him what back then was called a double. You know, they would move you up 2 grades because of your intellectual fortitude, because they recognized that they had made a mistake and really didn't want a lawsuit, so they were trying to scoot you up, right? To show that they, you know, hey, we recognize that you're super smart. So the parents wouldn't let him move this kid up. He was in his right grade, didn't understand his right grade, but he came out of that classroom, right? Matriculated through, finished up. And when that kid was in high school with me, you watched him. And there were 2 teachers in school in Opelika, Alabama, Miss Lay and Miss Duke. Nobody ever hardly passed their class the first time, right? One taught government, the other one taught economics, right? And it was like the one thing that everybody went to summer school for because nobody could ever pass their class, right? So this student walked in, and Miss Lay and Miss Duke told the student both at the same time, like, oh yeah, we know, but we heard about you. You're supposed to be smart, but you won't make it out of here. What kind of encouragement is that to somebody as a kid coming into that classroom, right? So the kid aimed out to prove him wrong. Dug in, passed both classes with an 8, 97% or above in both classes. Graduated, went on to be really successful, and every year this kid did some other accomplishment. He was mailing a letter back to Miss Lay and Miss Duke. And to the teacher until she passed and put him in that special ed classroom. Well, that person is a vice president at Amazon, and I'm still mailing letters back. So be careful where you place kids because they got behavioral issues. Just because they're angry, they may be angry because they're frustrated with the level of education that you might be exposed to. right? So sometimes it may not be their fault. It could be your fault. Take the time to evaluate what's behind what's going on with the kid. They may look some type of way, they may not be the way you want them to look, they may walk a little different, their pants may sag, skinny jeans may be too tight, whatever that might be. Look beyond that and look on the inside and see where their heart is, and see if you can navigate their heart to a place of comfort. And try to start connecting these kids back to the church in any way that you can, because it's important for them to have some type of emotional connectivity to God, because they may not be getting that at home. Just because they take it out of the classroom don't mean they take it out of your heart. So be conscious of that and be appropriate with the way that you handle these kids. And I'm not going to talk about what Amazon's doing, because I feel like y'all all are going to order a package before the end of the week, which keeps me sustained. I appreciate y'all. I wish I had some discount cards. It's not available right now. And no, I'm not going on that spaceship. So thank y'all so much for having me.
Brady Jr, y'all, my goodness, man, boy, we was in for a treat with him, right? And so, I tell you, his dad instilled the importance of education in him, right? And, you know, he is who we aspire to be, you know, and so, ultimately, a preacher too, right? Yeah, no, not a preacher, just a representative, 30 years. All right, so we're going to keep it moving, y'all. We got the youth focus coming up now. Go ahead and take bathroom breaks if you want to. We don't want to get away. What's up? Go ahead. Oh, where's that?
She's gonna need the pole. You put it back there.
Ones you left back here?
I didn't see yours in there, dog. We'll find it in a second.
It might be in his hand. Is it in
No, that's the other one.
Okay.
Let's keep it moving. All right, so if you need to use the restroom, please do so. We don't want to start interrupting. We'll be another 10 minutes. And my speakers have been here. John been here all day. John, you ready? All right, y'all come on up, man. This is our youth focus group, right? And so we had admin. We threw George Brady Jr. and Mr. Inspirational. And we're going to close it out with some youth things. And then one thing about John is he's a former law enforcement officer right here in the city of Montgomery. And he felt a calling after that. You know, what you served, 25 years or something like that? 26 years as a Montgomery police officer or in law enforcement. And he saw a need, right? And so that's one thing, right? We're talking about college, we're talking about education and all these different things, but everybody ain't gonna fall in that nice little neat little role. And so he's ahead of a tremendous ministry that educators need to know about this resource is available to them. You know, everybody ain't gonna have the 29 or the 30 on the ACT like I did. They'll have, you know, they may not fall in that role. John could help you pick up the pieces, not even as a youth, but he's got adults that take advantage of this program too. So let's give him a hand. Thank you, John.
Thank you. And just to piggyback on Amazon, I know he didn't want to talk about it, but my wife, I think, owns stock in it. But I will piggyback on it because they have something called Amazon Smile, and we don't have a cash out, but we are on Amazon Smile, and every purchase my wife makes, Amazon gives money to Hope Inspired Ministries. So you can go on Amazon Smile, make all your purchases, and dedicate to Hope Inspired Ministries. We would appreciate it. And I want to thank Wardell. I don't know him. I know a lot of people knew him in a lifetime. I talked to him on the phone about 30 minutes one day. I was driving to Lowndes County campus, and after that 30-minute conversation, I felt like I'd known him for 30 years. I mean, he's a phenomenal guy, and I just want to thank you for doing that. So what is Hope Inspired Ministries? I've got 3 kids, and my youngest kid, we both love Golden State Warriors, and he loves Xbox, and I grew up on something many of you may have. It was called Atari. One stick, one button. You know, for the simple mind, well, he's got the Xbox, and it's got like 500 buttons on it. We both like Golden State. We've got the, I forget what it's called. It's the basketball, the year where Golden State was real good. We had KD and a healthy Klay Thompson, and of course Steph Curry. But he always gets to pick first, so he picks them, and I get left with whoever. But by halftime, he has me wanting to push a button. What is it?
Which button?
It's the reset button. It's the reset button because I want to start over because I'm in a hopeless situation, just like Brubaker, those kids. And I love that you teach hope to them. But I'm in a hopeless situation, and I want to start over where I can start at ground zero and get a fresh start. Now, does he let me do it? No, he doesn't. And one day I went old school on him. He knows nothing about Michael Jordan, and I got the old school Chicago Bulls. You can actually pick the team. And I had him want to push a button by halftime. What was it? Now, did I let him? No, because there was a father moment I needed to teach him. But God lets us push the reset button in life. And I had actually written down, when Preston was talking, when he was talking about boosted clothing, his friend got caught. I wrote caught and uncaught. And we really do. We have the caught and we have the uncaught. And this is not a confession time. But if we all went back to our youth, and I did spend 26 years, and Pastor Davis was my supervisor over here, but 26 years, but prior to that, I had some run-ins with the law and had made mistakes in my life, but luckily my past didn't determine my future. My God did. My God did, and He brought me to the police department. And my son works there now, and I tell people there's no greater mission field than police work. Because what I did learn is that, jail didn't work. They didn't need jail, they needed Jesus. And I was introduced to a program called Hope Inspired Ministries because ultimately we wanted lower crime. And I had a young man that really God spoke to me through him. His name was Christopher Walters. And he was one of our trustees, phenomenal guy while in jail. But I told him about a program called Hope Inspired Ministries, and he went there. And me and my wife have always worked with the kids, and God showed me that, if a kid who's 13 doesn't have a godly father figure in his life, that one day 13-year-old kid will be a 40-year-old kid needing the exact same thing. Christopher was washing our cars one day at the police department, and I told him about Hope Inspired Ministries, how they would help him push the reset button in life and re-enter the workforce. And he went to Hope Inspired Ministries, and they called me and asked me if I would be a mentor to him. And I was like, well, absolutely. So I went over there and I started talking to Christopher. And obviously I had an insight into it. Christopher had been arrested for 40 times. 40 times. And we, as a police department, we could arrest him 41, 42, 43. And it would have continued in that circle that was broken. But of the 40 times, Christopher had one common denominator. Every time he got arrested, he had alcohol in his system. And we talked about it for about 2 weeks, and finally I talked him into getting the help that he needed with alcohol. And today he's working in Anniston at an automotive manufacturer and living a successful life. It just took a little bit of help and someone walking alongside him and pushing the reset button. So Hope Inspired Ministries, we are a workforce development with a heavy dose of social work. So there's varying things in individuals' lives that keep them from succeeding. Some of those things may be incarceration. It may be that they didn't have a parent at home. I heard many of you speak, a lot of you act just like your parents. My oldest son is 22 and he's a cop. Why is he a cop? Because he grew up watching one inside the household. Imagine if your father was a career-long criminal, and is it any surprise that you would not become one? We're all 1 or 2 steps away from making that bad decision, but a lot of them are doomed from the start, and they need someone to help them and show them how to work that 500 button game system and how to push